August 6, 1945, 8:15 in the morning. The sky above Hiroshima was clear. Children were walking to school. Workers were already at their desks. Streetcars moved through the city as they always did. There were no sirens, no warning, no countdown. Then, a flash, not a sound at first. A flash so bright that some survivors later said it felt like the sun had fallen to earth. In less than a second, the temperature at the center of the explosion reached several million degrees. In less than a minute, a city began to disappear. But this story does not begin with the explosion. It begins years earlier, with a secret, a race, a fear, and a decision that would change the world forever. This is the story of Hiroshima. The story of Hiroshima did not begin in Japan. It began in fear. In 1939, a letter reached President Franklin D. Roosevelt. It was signed by Albert Einstein. The message was simple and terrifying. Nazi Germany might be developing an atomic bomb. Physics had crossed the threshold. Scientists had discovered that splitting the atom could release unimaginable energy. And if that energy could be controlled, it could become a weapon unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The United States could not risk being second, because if Hitler acquired such a weapon first, the war would not just be lost, it would be decided in a single detonation. And so, quietly, the Manhattan Project was born, not announced, not debated publicly, hidden, scattered across secret sites. Los Alamos, Oak Ridge, Hanford, entire towns were built in isolation. Workers were recruited without knowing what they were building. Scientists were told only fragments. Even Vice President Harry Truman did not fully know the details. The scale was staggering. Over 130,000 people would eventually work on the project. Billions of dollars spent. Factories constructed at unprecedented speed. And at the center of it, a race against time. Because intelligence suggested Germany was pursuing similar research. The Americans believed they were competing against the clock. But something strange happened. By 1944, it became clear that Germany was nowhere close to building a bomb. The race that justified the project had quietly dissolved. And yet, the project did not stop. By then, momentum had taken over. Resources committed, infrastructure built, scientific breakthroughs accelerating. In July 1945, in the New Mexico desert, the first atomic bomb was tested, the Trinity test. At 5:29 a.m., the device detonated. Observers miles away were knocked to the ground by the blast wave. A fireball rose into the sky, then a mushroom cloud. Robert Oppenheimer, the scientific director of the project, later recalled a line from Hindu scripture, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." It was not celebration. It was realization. The weapon worked. But by July 1945, Germany had already surrendered. The European war was over. Only Japan remained. And Japan was not surrendering. The Pacific War had been brutal. Island by island. Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Casualties were catastrophic on both sides. Japanese forces fought to the last man. Kamikaze attacks intensified. American planners estimated that a full invasion of mainland Japan could cost hundreds of thousands of American lives, possibly millions of Japanese lives. And now, in Washington, there was a new reality. The United States possessed a weapon capable of ending the war in a single strike. President Truman learned of the bomb only after Roosevelt's death in April 1945. He had inherited a war, and now he inherited a decision. The weapon existed. It could not be undiscovered. It could not be uninvented. The question was no longer, can we build it? It was, should we use it? Inside military and political circles, debates began. Some argued for a demonstration. Detonate the bomb on an uninhabited area. Show Japan its power. Force surrender without mass casualties. Others argued that a demonstration might fail. If the device malfunctioned publicly, American credibility would collapse. And there was another concern. If Japan did not surrender after seeing the demonstration, would the United States hesitate to use it again? There was also timing. The Soviet Union had promised to enter the war against Japan in August 1945. American leaders feared that if the war dragged on, Soviet influence in Asia would expand dramatically. Ending the war quickly was not just about saving lives. It was about shaping the post-war world. And so the Manhattan Project reached its final stage. Target committees met. They studied Japanese cities that had not yet been heavily bombed. They wanted maximum impact, psychological shock, clear measurement of destruction. Hiroshima was selected. A military headquarters was located there. The city had been relatively untouched by previous air raids, which meant the effect would be unmistakable. There would be no confusion about the source, no blending with conventional bombing damage. It would be singular, clear, unprecedented. And here's the unsettling truth. By late July 1945, the machinery was already in motion. Bomb components shipped to the Pacific, crew selected, training missions flown. The decision was approaching, not in a dramatic cinematic moment, but in memorandums, in signatures, in quiet approval. Because once a weapon of this magnitude exists, it demands a choice. And the choice was coming. And when it came, it would not just end a war, it would begin a new era. July 1945, the war in Europe was over. Germany had surrendered. Berlin had fallen. Hitler was dead. But in the Pacific, the war raged on. Japan showed no signs of surrender. American bombers had already devastated dozens of cities with conventional firebombing. Tokyo had burned. Entire urban districts reduced to ash. And still, the Japanese government hesitated. The concept of surrender was culturally complex. The emperor was divine. Capitulation was humiliation. And military hardliners believed they could inflict such heavy casualties on an invading American force that the United States would negotiate. American planners were preparing for Operation Downfall, the invasion of mainland Japan. The estimates were chilling. Hundreds of thousands of American casualties, possibly millions of Japanese deaths. The recent Battle of Okinawa had been a preview. Over 12,000 Americans killed, over 100,000 Japanese soldiers dead, civilians caught in between, and that was only one island. Now imagine the Japanese mainland. President Harry Truman faced this reality at the Potsdam Conference in July 1945. There, he met with Winston Churchill and Joseph Stalin. He also carried a secret. The Trinity test had succeeded. The United States now possessed a weapon unlike any in history. On July 24th, Truman casually informed Stalin that America had developed a new weapon of unusual destructive force. Stalin showed little reaction, but he already knew. Soviet intelligence had penetrated the Manhattan Project. The nuclear age had begun quietly. Back in Washington, discussions intensified. Should the bomb be used immediately? Should Japan be warned? Should the emperor be guaranteed protection in exchange for surrender? The Potsdam Declaration was issued on July 26, 1945. It called for Japan's unconditional surrender or face prompt and utter destruction. Japan did not respond clearly. Some officials wanted to negotiate. Others insisted on fighting on. Silence followed. Inside American leadership circles, momentum built toward use. The bomb had cost billions. It had taken years. And it promised to end the war quickly. There was also a geopolitical layer. If the United States ended the war before the Soviet Union advanced deeply into Asia, post-war influence in the region would remain primarily American. Time was a factor. Every day mattered. And here is the uncomfortable truth. By late July, the debate was no longer whether in many minds. It was when. The Target Committee had already narrowed options. Hiroshima, Kakura, Nagasaki, Niigata. They evaluated weather patterns, urban layout, military significance, psychological effect. Hiroshima rose to the top. It was a major army headquarters, a communications hub, and largely untouched by prior bombing, which meant the destruction would be visible, unmistakable. On July 25, 1945, Truman signed an order authorizing the use of the atomic bomb once weather permitted after August 3rd. There was no countdown clock, no dramatic announcement, just authorization, paper, ink, and inevitability. The bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, was assembled on the island of Tinian in the Pacific. Its design was relatively simple compared to plutonium device tested at Trinity. It had never been detonated before. The first use would be over city. The crew was selected. Colonel Paul Tibbets would pilot the B-29 bomber. He named the aircraft after his mother, Enola Gay. Training missions continued. Altitude, speed, release timing. They rehearsed without knowing exactly how history would judge them. Inside Japan, daily life continued. Air raid sirens were common by then. American bombers flew frequently, but Hiroshima had been spared major damage. Some believed the city was being preserved for post-war occupation. Others simply carried on. On August 5th, weather reports confirmed clear skies over Hiroshima. The mission was set. Orders were final. There would be no demonstration, no last-minute warning specific to the city. Leaflets had been dropped in other regions weeks earlier, but Hiroshima would wake up unaware. And that is what makes the decision so heavy. The choice was not impulsive. It was calculated, strategic, measured, and irreversible, because once dropped, the world would never be the same again. August 6, 1945, 2:45 a.m. On the island of Tinian in the Pacific Ocean, a silver B-29 bomber rolled slowly down the runway. Its engines roared against the humid night air. Inside the aircraft were 12 men. They had trained for months. They knew this mission was different, but none of them fully understood what would happen next. The plane lifted into darkness, its name painted on the nose, Enola Gay. Below it, the Pacific was black and endless. Above it, stars. The bomb rested in the belly of the aircraft. Little Boy, a uranium base weapon, weighing nearly 10,000 pounds. No test had ever detonated this exact design. The first use would be real. The target, Hiroshima. But the mission depended on weather. If cloud cover obscured the city, the crew would move to a secondary target, Kakura, then Nagasaki. They were not hunting blindly. They needed visibility. Clear skies meant maximum effect. 3 weather reconnaissance planes had already flown ahead, reporting conditions back. Hiroshima was clear. As Enola Gay crossed the Japanese coastline, air raid warnings briefly sounded in the city, but they were common. Small numbers of aircraft often flew reconnaissance. When radar detected only a few planes, the alarm was canceled. People returned to work. Students resumed tasks. Streetcars continued moving. No one looked up expecting anything unusual. Inside the bomber, the crew remained focused. There was no cheering, no dramatic speeches, just procedures. Final checks. Altitude steady at around 31,000 feet. Bomb bay doors tested. Arming sequence prepared. Captain William Parsons, a weaponeer, completed the final arming steps mid-flight. The bomb was now live. Below them, Hiroshima spread across the delta of the Oda River, a city of approximately 350,000 people, military installations, hospitals, homes, schools, markets. At 8:09 a.m., the bombardier, Thomas Farabee, took his position. He looked through the Norden bomb site. Crosshairs aligned. A bridge near the center of the city was selected as the aiming point. The AIY bridge, distinctive shape, easy to identify from altitude. At 8:15 a.m., the bomb was released. 4:43 seconds, it fell. The plane banked sharply to escape the blast radius. Inside the aircraft, the crew waited. Some counted, some held their breath. They had been told to wear dark goggles to protect their eyes. Then, a flash. Even with their backs turned, even with goggles, the light pierced through. White, blinding. Then came the shockwave. 2 powerful jolts struck the aircraft. The blast rose beneath them. And below, Hiroshima changed forever. But for a moment, there was silence, because the speed of light travels faster than sound. In the city, people saw the flash before they heard anything. Some described it as magnesium, others as a camera flash magnified beyond imagination. Shadows were burned into walls, human silhouettes imprinted on stone. Then the fireball expanded. Temperatures at the center soared to several million degrees Celsius. Within a radius of roughly 1 mile, structures vaporized, wood ignited instantly, skin burned at distance. Windows shattered miles away. A mushroom cloud began to climb, thick, churning, darkening the sky. Inside the plane, the crew looked back. One described it as a giant purple mushroom. Another said it felt unreal, detached, scientific, but below, reality was immediate and catastrophic. 8:15 a.m. For the people of Hiroshima, there was no countdown, no awareness of a falling object, only light, a blinding absolute light. Some later said it felt like the sun had exploded. Others said it was as if the air itself had ignited. Within a fraction of a second, the temperature near the hypocenter reached levels hotter than the surface of the sun. Skin exposed to the flash burned instantly. Clothing patterns were seared into flesh. Dark fabric absorbed more heat. Lighter fabric reflected it. People closer to the blast were vaporized. Buildings within a mile collapsed almost immediately. Wooden homes burst into flame. Concrete structures lost walls and windows. The shockwave moved outward at incredible speed. Glass shattered miles away. Roofs lifted. Bridges twisted. Then came the wind, a powerful blast front that swept debris, metal, and human bodies across streets. And then the fires began. Fires that merged into a firestorm. Air rushing inward to feed the flames. Oxygen consumed rapidly. Inside hospitals, doctors and nurses were among the first casualties. Medical facilities were destroyed at the very moment they were most needed. Water pipes ruptured. Communication lines vanished. The city became silence and fire. Those who survived the initial blast stumbled through streets that no longer looked familiar. Landmarks were gone, neighbors unrecognizable. Some walked with skin hanging from their arms. Others were burned but unaware of how severe the damage was. Many searched for family members who would never answer. Black rain began to fall hours later. Heavy droplets mixed with soot and radioactive particles. People drank from puddles, desperate for relief from thirst. They did not know what radiation was. They did not know the invisible damage had already begun inside their bodies. Within minutes, tens of thousands were dead. By the end of the day, an estimated 70,000 to 80,000 people had died. Many instantly, many slowly, and the number would climb in the months and years that followed. Back aboard Enola Gay, the crew watched the mushroom cloud rise to nearly 40,000 feet. They documented it, photographed it, radioed confirmation of success. Mission accomplished. The bomb had performed as designed. But below the cloud, Hiroshima no longer resembled a city. It resembled an absence, a void where streets once existed. The scale of destruction was unlike any previous weapon. Not a bombing campaign, not repeated air raids. One device, one explosion, and an entire urban center was erased in seconds. Yet even in the immediate aftermath, confusion remained. Japanese authorities struggled to understand what had happened. Reports described a single plane, a single bomb, unprecedented destruction. Some initially believed it was exaggerated, until reconnaissance confirmed the reality. An entire city devastated by one weapon. 3 days later, on August 9th, a second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. By then, the pattern was clear. Japan faced not just defeat, but annihilation. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito addressed the nation by radio. For the first time, the Japanese public heard his voice. He announced surrender. The war was over, but the effects of 8/15 did not end with surrender. Radiation sickness began appearing among survivors. Hair falling out, internal bleeding, fever, weakness, illnesses that doctors did not yet understand. Years later, cancers increased. Birth defects emerged. The word hibakusha, meaning bomb-affected person, entered the language. Survivors carried scars both visible and invisible. And here's the part that still divides historians. Did the bomb end the war sooner? Did it prevent an invasion that would have killed more? Or did it introduce a weapon that changed warfare forever? There is no simple answer, only consequences. Because at 8:15 a.m. on August 6, 1945, humanity crossed a threshold. It proved that a single device could destroy a city. And once that proof exists, it cannot be erased. When Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945, the war ended. Crowds gathered in American cities. Celebrations erupted. Sailors kissed strangers in Times Square. Church bells rang. The longest and deadliest conflict in human history was finally over. But beneath the relief, something irreversible had happened. For the first time, humanity had used atomic energy as a weapon of war, and the world had seen what it could do. Hiroshima was not just the end of World War II. It was the beginning of the nuclear age. In the months that followed, photographs of the city circulated globally. Charred landscapes, twisted steel, buildings reduced to skeletons. The scale was hard to process. One bomb, one plane, one flash, entire districts gone. Scientists who had worked on the Manhattan Project felt the weight differently. Some believed it had been necessary. Others felt a moral burden that would never leave them. Oppenheimer later testified against expanding nuclear arsenals. He had helped unlock the door. Now, he feared what would come through it, because once one nation possesses such a weapon, others will pursue it. And they did. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb. The American monopoly ended. An arms race began. Bigger bombs, more powerful designs, hydrogen weapons capable of magnitudes beyond Hiroshima, intercontinental missiles, submarines, bombers on permanent alert. The logic became something chilling, mutually assured destruction. If both sides can destroy each other completely, neither side will strike first. Deterrence replaced victory as strategy. The Cold War defined the second half of the 20th century, and its foundation was laid in part by what happened in Hiroshima. The fear of nuclear annihilation shaped politics, foreign policy, military planning, civil defense drills. Children practiced duck and cover in classrooms. Fallout shelters were built beneath homes. The possibility of extinction became part of everyday life, all because of a flash at 8:15. Yet, Hiroshima was not only about strategy and geopolitics. It was about memory. Survivors rebuilt the city. Peace memorials were constructed. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial Dome remains standing today, a skeletal reminder of the blast. Each year, ceremonies are held, names read aloud, silence observed, not in anger, but in remembrance, because the lesson of Hiroshima is not simple. It is layered. It is uncomfortable. It is debated. Some argue the bomb prevented greater loss of life by avoiding invasion. Others argue it opened the door to weapons capable of ending civilization. Both truths exist in tension. What cannot be debated is this. After August 6, 1945, the world understood its own destructive capacity. For the first time, humanity held the power to eliminate itself, and that knowledge has never left us. Every nuclear treaty signed, every arms reduction agreement negotiated, every diplomatic crisis de-escalated, carries the shadow of Hiroshima. The bomb ended a war, but it also created a new kind of fear. A fear not of occupation or invasion, but of annihilation. And so the world entered a new era, one defined not only by power, but by restraint. Because once you know what a single device can do, you think differently about pressing the button. Hiroshima was a moment, but its echo has lasted generations, and it still echoes today. At 8:15 a.m., the city vanished, but something else appeared, a new era. Before Hiroshima, war was measured in armies, in fronts, in territory gained and lost. After Hiroshima, war was measured in seconds, in megatons, in extinction. The bomb ended one war, but it began a question that humanity still hasn't fully answered. What do we do with power like this? Some believe Hiroshima saved lives, that it prevented an invasion that would have killed hundreds of thousands more. Others believe it crossed a moral line that should never have been crossed. History holds both arguments, but it holds something else too. Proof that we can build weapons capable of erasing cities. Proof that science moves faster than wisdom. Proof that decisions made in quiet rooms can reshape the planet. The men aboard the Enola Gay saw a cloud rising. The people in Hiroshima saw light. The world saw the future, and that future has lived with us ever since. Because once the atom was split, it could never be put back together. Hiroshima was not just destruction, it was revelation. A revelation of what we are capable of, for good, for survival, and for unimaginable loss. The war ended, the celebrations faded, the rubble was cleared, the city was rebuilt, but the shadow remains, not just in Hiroshima, not just in history books, but in every conversation about nuclear weapons, in every treaty, in every crisis where restraint matters more than pride. August 6, 1945 did not just change a war, it changed the boundaries of human possibility. And once those boundaries expand, they never fully shrink again. Fade to black. Text on screen. August 6, 1945. Hiroshima, the beginning of the nuclear age. Silence.